one of the spectators guaranteed a really close-up view of this unique and often dangerous sport, with the monohulled Formula 3 boats and the Formula 2 Cats with their twin hulls. And then on to the really big boys, the Formula 1s, powered by highly tuned 1600cc engines capable of top speeds in excess of 100 miles an hour. The Bristol city centre is only 100 yards away from the docks, and it was as part of the city's Royal Charter celebrations that the races were held. Races which took place in the shadow of SS Great Britain, the oldest iron ship in the world. She's partway through a 10-year programme of repairs that will turn her into a nautical monument. And for 2 days during the racing, she was a silent spectator to man's remarkable progress in waterborne travel. For these powerboats are really ultra-modern. They're the sleekest, the fastest and the most efficient waterborne racing machines that man has yet been able to design. And despite their relatively thin fiberglass and plywood hulls, the boats can and do take an enormous amount of punishment, and so do the drivers. This is the second heat of the Formula 2 series, with two Dutch drivers, Johan Koch in boat 19 and Joep Rijmakers in boat 28, battling it out for first place. First, it's number 19 in front, and then 28. Both powerboats are going flat out, approaching speeds of about 75 miles an hour. Races normally last for 2 hours and are a test of endurance for both driver and machine. But for this sprint meeting, the races were reduced to half an hour, and it was a case of being flat out all the way. This heat ended with a win for Rijmakers with Koch second, and after the first two races, both drivers were level on points. The pits at a powerboat meeting are like those at a Grand Prix race, with these sleek racing machines and drivers like the British champion Tom Percival.
This class of boat is known as the Formula 1 type, where they're virtually equivalent as far as the performance is concerned as a Formula 1 motor car. We run at speeds approaching 100 miles an hour under pretty... The basis of these boats compared with the monohull configuration is that we ride under a cushion of air which is created by the tunnel effect of the boat. This is a complete tunnel, whereas the air is trapped under the boat. Now then, a good driver will allow his boat to ride higher and higher, which is done by moving switches on the steering wheel, which moves the engine out. If a driver doesn't allow his engine to lift out enough, his boat runs soggy in the water. And the result of this is, of course, he doesn't win a boat race. The driver who allows his boat to hang out too far will have accidents, and accidents can, of course, cause quite serious injuries.
There are only about 24 men in the world who race Formula 1 powerboats, and most, like Tom Percival, are financed as members of works teams. With the big boats costing up to £4,000 each, it's a rich man's sport, but there are some wealthy amateurs, mostly in races like this one for Formula 3, where the costs are marginally cheaper. This series developed during the championships into a personal duel between two British drivers, London-based Tony Williams in boat number 32 and Roger Jenkins from Cardiff in boat 36. And it was Jenkins in his new Italian-built boat with the 800cc engine who won the first heat, with Williams in his slightly back in third place. Another British driver, Alan Langdon in boat 47, took second place, and then Langdon, an Exeter builder, came through to win Heat 2 and pushed Jenkins and Williams back into second and third places. drivers compete in 4 races, it's only their best 3 positions which count towards the final overall placings. And Cardiff businessman Roger Jenkins was thankful for that. In Heat 3, he pushed it too hard, hit one of the boys and overturned. And it needed the Frogman to rescue both driver and powerboat. With Jenkins gone, it was Williams who took first place, and that made the 4th and final race in this series the one that was really going to count. 36-year-old Jenkins had come out of the crash without an injury, but his boat hadn't been so lucky, and there were some emergency fiberglass repairs before the Welshman could lick it back into racing shape. Into Heat 4, and straight away it's Williams, number 32, in front, Jenkins in his patched-up boat second. Into the final laps, and Jenkins tries and fails to take Williams on the outside, but he needn't have bothered. Although Williams crossed the line first, it was Jenkins who won on corrected time. Williams's more powerful boat had been handicapped to win by a lengthy margin, and he just failed. Welshman Jenkins took the 4th heat and also the gold medal in this series. The monohulled Formula 3 boats are not as stable as the boats with the twin hulls, and their races were lively, eventful and spectacular. Perhaps the most disappointed man in this class was Harry King in boat number 53. Harry, a restaurant owner from Abingdon, had engine trouble and failed to make any impact in the first 2 heats. But with the trouble repaired, he won both remaining races. And the overall winner of this class was Brian Timpson, a garage owner from Leicester, in his boat number 64, Intrepid. The start of the 3rd race in the Formula 2 series was a soggy one for David Pratt, a Leicestershire garage owner, in Soggy Moggy. But all eyes were probably on the men who got away in the lead, the Dutch pair of Johan Koch and Joep Rijmakers. Koch in boat 19, Rijmakers in number 28. Both level on 760 points after the first 2 races. Powerboating is often compared to Grand Prix driving, but here you can't slipstream the man in front. If you do, you collect the dirty water from his spray. And it was dirty water that Joep Rijmakers had to swallow as he chased Koch all the way to the finishing line. Into the 4th and final heat, and this time it was Rijmakers who shot straight into the lead, and he stayed there. Koch tried several times to overtake his fellow Dutchman, but finally had to retire with engine trouble. And although he finished with the same number of points in the series, it was Rijmakers who was declared the overall winner. The gold medal went to Rijmakers because he'd won the 4th heat in the series. And so to the Formula 1, the elite of powerboat racing. The engines on these boats are so highly tuned that they'd stall if they were left idling. And it's only after the starter has dropped his flag that the drivers start their engines and race away. 11 boats took part in this series, and straight away it was number 5, Peter Thornywork, into the lead in his Embassy Cougar. Thornywork, a Midlands builder, led the first heat throughout, and he completely overshadowed the world champion, Kees van der Velden, in boat number 1, who finished 3rd. Van der Velden's style didn't suit the short Bristol circuit, and it wasn't until the 3rd heat that he produced his world-class form and record lap times. Second place in this first heat went to the British champion, Tom Percival, in boat number 10. The second heat of this series produced a remarkable win for one of those wealthy amateurs who compete in Formula 1, and that was Clive Hook in boat number 11, Pink Panther. Clive, who's 30, is a Bournemouth builder and the former South African champion. Behind him in second place was another builder, Peter Thornywork, increasing his points total to 760. The man in third place was the British champion, Tom Percival. The view from one of the dockside cranes gives an impression of the tremendous power and speed of these powerboats, with the stone quayside wall sometimes only inches from a boat travelling at 90 miles an hour. Clive Hook acknowledges an unexpected win.